You can order the front wheel hub and wheel bearing used in the video on the CarParts.com website via the link in the description. Turn your engine off and set the parking brake. We recommend loosening the nut on the end of the transmission once the vehicle is on the ground. If your vehicle is equipped with aluminum rims, you will need to remove the wheel first before you can remove the central rim cover. Use a breaker bar and a 30mm socket to unblock the nut on the end of the transmission. Loosen the stud bolts on the front wheels. In order to change the front wheel hub and wheel bearing on your vehicle, you will need to take off the wheels to have full access. Lift the front of your vehicle. Place the vehicle on the jack stands. We strongly suggest watching our video on how to jack your Toyota Camry safely before carrying out this step. Don't forget to put the wheels under the vehicle. Finish unscrewing the nut on the end of the transmission. It is now necessary to remove the caliper assembly. Turn the disc outwards. This will facilitate the following steps. Using a socket wrench and a 17mm socket, unscrew the two holding screws on the caliper mount. Tip: attach a piece of electrical cable or a hook to one of the strut spring coils. Remove the caliper assembly and hang it on the hook. Then remove the disc. Using a ratchet, an extender, and a 10mm socket, unscrew the ABS sensor's retaining bolt. Then remove the sensor. It is now time to remove the outer tie rod from the knuckle. Remove the key from the castellated nut of the outer tie rod with a screwdriver. Using a socket wrench and a 17mm socket, unscrew the outer tie rod holding nut. If you do not have a ball joint puller, a tool specifically designed for this task, take a hammer and hit the knuckle. The ball joint should come out of the knuckle. Using a flathead screwdriver, unfold the pin from the castle nut of the lower ball joint. Then remove it using pliers. Brush the nut of the lower ball joint and spray it with penetrating oil. Unscrew the nut a few threads using a 19mm wrench. Brush the two strut foot bolts, then spray them with penetrating oil. Next, using a ratchet, a 22mm socket, and a 22mm wrench to prevent the bolt from rotating, unscrew the strut foot nuts. Then remove the bolts. You can use a pin punch and a plastic mallet. Separate the strut foot from the wheel knuckle by prying it using a large screwdriver. The wheel knuckle is now free. Then shift the wheel knuckle by disengaging it from the front CV axle. Finish unscrewing the nut of the lower ball joint. Then remove the lower ball joint from the wheel knuckle. You can use a hammer to help you. remove the wheel knuckle.
You can purchase the parts we used here by visiting our website at CarParts.com.
When you change your wheel hub or your wheel bearing, we recommend that you also change your brake backing plate. To remove it, you need to remove the wheel hub and therefore replace the wheel bearing. Using a 10mm wrench, unscrew the 4 bolts holding the brake backing plate. Then remove them. Secure the wheel knuckle in a vise. Next, using a flathead screwdriver and a fork, remove the wheel bearing metal shield. Be careful not to damage it, as it is not supplied in the kit. Using Circlip pliers, remove the bearing retaining ring. You now need to press the wheel hub using a hydraulic press in order to extract it from the wheel bearing. Take a 44mm bearing dismantle cup, then press the wheel hub outwards. Once the wheel hub is disengaged from the bearing, you can now remove the brake backing plate from the wheel knuckle. In most cases, when you press the wheel hub, part of the bearing remains attached to the wheel hub. It is therefore mandatory after pressing the wheel hub to replace the wheel bearing. That is why we strongly recommend replacing the brake backing plate at the same time. Take a 74mm bearing dismantle cup, then press the wheel bearing inwards. Once the wheel bearing has been removed, thoroughly clean the location of the bearing and the wheel knuckle using a wire brush and a brake cleaner. Apply assembly grease to facilitate the installation of the new bearing. Next, place the wheel knuckle on the press. You can order the wheel bearing used in the video on the CarParts.com website via the link in the description. Take the new bearing. The wiring on the bearing must be positioned on the press side. Apply assembly grease to facilitate the installation of the bearing. Place the old bearing on the new one, as it is exactly the same diameter as the new one. Then install the 74mm bearing dismantle cup. Next, press the assembly until the new bearing comes to a stop, or you have the space you need to position the retaining clip. Put the wheel knuckle back in the vise. Then reinsert the retaining clip. Put the metal shield back in place by correctly positioning the ABS sensor opening. Install it using a small mallet. Take the brake backing plate. Remember to put the brake backing plate in place on the wheel knuckle before reinstalling the wheel hub. Then, screw the 4 bolts back on. Apply assembly grease to the inside of the bearing.
Hey, it's Alex from CarParts.com. If you enjoyed this video and want to support us, like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, back to work.
You can order the wheel hub used in the video on CarParts.com through the link in the description. Place the wheel hub on the press. You can now position it on a socket so as not to rest on the threading. Apply assembly grease. Then position the wheel knuckle on the wheel hub. Take a 59mm bearing dismantle cup. Then press the central ring of the wheel bearing onto the wheel hub until it stops. The preparation of the new part is now complete. Put the wheel knuckle back onto the lower ball joint. Then loosely screw the nut back on. You must now fit the CV axle back into the wheel knuckle. Insert the wheel knuckle into the strut foot. Replace the bolts. Then screw the nuts back on by hand at first. Screw the strut foot nuts back on until they make contact using a ratchet, a 22mm socket, and a 22mm wrench to prevent the bolt from rotating. Finish tightening using a torque wrench. Using a wire brush, scrub the knuckle of the wheel knuckle. Then apply silicone grease to the flat part that will be in contact with the sleeve of the outer tie rod. Do not grease the inside of the cone. Put the outer tie rod back in place in the knuckle. Reassemble the castle nut and tighten it using a 19mm wrench. Finish tightening using a torque wrench. Take the key and fit it into the castle nut. Use a screwdriver to bend the key. Finish tightening the nut holding the lower ball joint using a torque wrench. Take the key and fit it into the castle nut. Use a screwdriver to bend the key. Reinstall the brake disc. You can now reinstall the caliper assembly. And screw it back on. Finish tightening using a torque wrench. Don't forget to remove the hook that you used to hold the caliper assembly together. Insert the ABS sensor into its housing. Then, retighten the retaining bolt. We recommend replacing the hub nut with a new one, and screw it back on. Then you will be able to put the wheels back on your vehicle. Put the car back on the ground and block the wheels properly. Finish tightening the hub nut once the vehicle is on the ground using a torque wrench. Crimp the nut at the end of the transmission using a pin punch and a hammer. Put the central rim cover back on. Operation complete.